Part 112. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1112. At this moment, outside the Terror Beast Mountain Forest, there is a piece of land in the distance. The invisible black light approached quickly and finally stopped. Two men appear. If Duguyuking were here, he would definitely be able to recognize these two people. They were the two dark rot slaves he saw in the Pure Land of Thunder Road. The host of the Dark Fire was led by the Thunder Emperor to the front. One of the rot slaves suddenly spoke and said. They stopped. But the other rot slave said tremblingly at this moment. No. A wisp of ancestral energy in my body is throbbing in front of me. Should the existence I am looking for at the source be right in front? These two rot slaves are heading to the Thunder Road Emperor's Court. The most important thing is to find the host of the Dark Fire. Then, follow the Dark Fire and find someone. The source said that the fire of darkness would guide them to find some extremely ancient dark existences. For this reason, the source gave them both an ancestral energy. If you encounter those extremely ancient dark existences, the ancestral energy will be throbbing. At this moment, the throbbing has arrived. We are close. The people the source is looking for should be in the area ahead. Report to the source. The two rot slaves spoke hurriedly. A dark place of unknown location. In the thick darkness, a secret eye suddenly released slowly, seemingly communicating with the other side of time and space. Any news? The being on the dark throne spoke lazily and said. Why, you still don't trust my Deo body? If it doesn't work, I'll help you test him a few more times. Why send those dead people? Hearing this, the voice of the black spirit suddenly sounded in the darkness, saying. No, that's not necessary. I'm not interested in testing your body. The being on the dark throne was a little puzzled and said. Why do I feel that you are a little scared? Are you afraid of me or the Tao body? He Ling was silent for a long time and said. Don't think too much. After saying that, the black spirit disappeared from this dark space. The being on the dark throne sensed the departure of the black spirit and suddenly said to himself. Are the exchanges between you more and more frequent? It's clear that my Taoist body has returned to the village to be immortal. Why are you still so afraid? Hey, I have forgotten too much, I have forgotten too much. He sighed. Dark depths. A humanoid black mist appeared here, kneeling in front of a dark door. Master, the Thunder Emperor's imperial court collapsed, and we have also found the host of the Dark Fire. Now, the host of the Dark Fire seems to be approaching some unfathomable place. The ancestral energy you bestowed upon me is throbbing. After hearing this, there was a mysterious power flowing on the door, and a lot of dark mist seemed to pour out, and a voice sounded from it. The ancestral energy is throbbing, it means you are close to my ancestor. There was some excitement in these words, and he said. Let your rot slaves bring the host of darkness, to see my ancestor and give the fire of darkness to my ancestor. Immediately. Hearing this, He Ling also nodded seriously and said. He Ling obeys. He left. And after He Ling left. In the dark door, the voice is still murmuring. Back then, countless powerful people in the Dark Dome were planning to set up the Burning Universe Array to target that person, but, due to some accidents, they were suppressed by that person. Then, the man asked the dancing master to take them away. My ancestor was also among them. According to speculation, they are most likely sealed. It only takes the fire of darkness to wake them up. There seemed to be a strong expectation in this voice as he murmured. If they revive, they can use the fire of darkness to set up a universe-burning formation. Maybe, this time they can kill the last body of that person. Forbidden World. Kaiwanzhou, Yaiwanzhou, in the sky above the terrifying beast forest, there are countless thunders. Lei De was very surprised. Judging from the status of my brothers and sisters, not only do they have no problems, they actually have great opportunities. Moreover, he did not feel any fear, or other emotions from the subtle reactions of those brothers. This shows that, this small mountain village is not dangerous. Very good. I see. At this moment, he suddenly figured it out. This place is definitely a hidden pure land of the ancestors. Faced with such a great opportunity, no matter what, he would choose to explore it even if the danger was uncertain. What's more, now that his brothers have gone in, they have not found any danger. Immediately, he waved his hand, and a middle-aged man suddenly appeared next to him. Xuanhuan. The Thunder Emperor was extremely cautious, and Xuanhuan was his only Taoist who had successfully parasitized him. Therefore, he took Xuanhuan with him along the way and placed him in his Taoist scenery. As the great emperor, Daijing land has long since evolved into a place of vitality that can allow living people to live in it. This emperor is going to visit this small mountain village. You wait for me here and don't move around. I will come back as soon as I go. Lei Emperor spoke calmly to Xuanhuan. Today's Xuanhuan is a trump card to him. If there was really any problem with the pure land of the ancestors, he would at least have the guarantee that he could be reborn in the Xuanhuan pure land. This was also the reason why he made up his mind to go and find out. And Xuanhuan, who had just walked out of the Thunder Emperor's Dao scenery, now looked down after hearing this. Then, he was completely stunned. Damn, what the hell is this? Small mountain village. Why did I encounter this small mountain village again? His first feeling was that it was over. Over the years, although he has been chased by people in the small mountain village, at least he has not seen the small mountain village with his own eyes since the underworld. Now I see. Danger. His first feeling was danger. Great Emperor, I have an immature suggestion, otherwise I shouldn't go. There may be some evil in this place. Xuanhuan forced himself to speak. It's not easy for me to hug the Emperor's lap. It would be a shame to break such a thick thigh. Evil. Lady smiled calmly and said. What evil things have happened in this world that I haven't seen? If you don't enter the tiger's den, you won't catch the tiger's cubs. I am going to leave, please wait for me here. After saying that, the figure of the Thunder Emperor disappeared directly from the place, and with a flash of light, he was already approaching the small mountain village. Seeing this scene, Xuanhuan did not hesitate, he turned around and ran away. That's called fast. Now, in a small mountain village, a group of children have almost fed the group of thunderbirds with water. Here, put this one down, let's tie its feet, let it fly out, and then practice slingshot. Wang Erxiao opened his mouth and immediately released Thunder Emperor's brother, Lei Ling, tied his feet with a rope, and then drove him away. Lei Ling had just finished drinking the water in the gutter and had recovered somewhat. At this moment, he was struggling to flap his wings, but he couldn't fly at all. Moreover, the next moment he was furious, because he felt as if some great weapon had locked onto him. It turned around tremblingly, only to see Wang Erxiao pointing his slingshot at it. Its whole body went limp in an instant, the whole bird trembled, and it didn't dare to run at all. Ah, this bird is so boring. Wang Erxiao felt extremely bored. But, right now. Snapped. Outside the mountain village, there was suddenly a terrifying thunder. Lightning filled the sky, terrifying dark clouds were gathering, and a thunderstorm seemed to have broken out in the sky. When the second uncle saw this, he immediately became happy and said, "The thundering sky is finally here." Wang Erxiao suddenly pointed to the sky outside the village and said, "What a big bird." At this moment, there was actually a big blue bird flying towards the mountain village. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1113. Dugu Yuking, Fan Peiming, Fan Yao Yao, and the Saint Shui Qingling of the Waterway Imperial Court were all shocked at this moment and looked outside the village. They clearly saw, above the vast sky, a terrifying thunderbird, as if attacking from the nine heavens, flying high in the sky with thunderous light. Every feather exudes the energy of the Emperor. Wherever it goes, even the space is crushed, and everything it flies through turns into a black hole. The entire world seems to be unable to bear this kind of power. The sky is filled with the terrifying power of thunder, and it has become a restricted area of thunder. Any creature that touches it will probably be bombarded to death by the thunder. In fact, if Emperor Lei hadn't deliberately blocked this area because he was afraid that other emperors would discover the pure land of the ancestors here, then I'm afraid the entire Kaiwan continent would have been sunk by him. The thought of the great emperor was enough to shock the world. The body of the Thunder Emperor. Shui Qingling was extremely shocked and said, "He's here to kill, and he's actually evolved into his true form. Are you prepared to fight to the death? It's over. Although this place is a pure land, there is no emperor-level powerful person sitting here, we can't resist it, and we will all die." She looked extremely pale and despaired of all her thoughts. Once the great emperor appears, who will compete with him? As the founder of the Way, the great emperor was the strongest existence in the entire forbidden world in the era when the emperor of heaven did not appear. I escaped the plot of the Waterway Emperor, but will I still die in the wrath of the Thunder Emperor in the end? Even Fan Yao Yao and Fan Peiming couldn't help but feel a little nervous at this moment. This kind of fluctuation is terrifying. Although they have met Li Fan and know that Li Fan is powerful, they have never seen Li Fan take action in person. Even when Dugu Yuking fought against the darkness in the Valley of Origin, the fluctuations actually exceeded the level visible to the world, and they did not feel the horror of world destruction. Now, everything is so intimate. The violent thunder power is endless, suppressing everything. Only Dugu Yuking remained calm. "Second uncle, do you want to shoot birds?" He suddenly turned his head and asked the second uncle. The second uncle glanced outside the village and saw that there seemed to be thunder in the sky, and a rather large bird was flying towards the small mountain village. He didn't take it to heart at all and said, "This bird is not interesting. Xiao, don't you want to practice slingshot? Come, let Xiao see if your slingshot is accurate." Wang Xiao had been paying attention to the big flying bird. When he heard this, he immediately said excitedly, "Okay, let me try." Immediately, he occupied the entrance of the village and looked at the bird. Wait for that bird to approach. Now. The pure land of the ancestors belongs to me." At this moment, in the sky, the Thunder Emperor whispered and shouted. At the moment when he rushed towards the small mountain village, a doubt flashed in his heart, because he had inexplicably manifested himself without being aware of it, but that was not important. The pure land of our ancestors is already right in front of us. His huge claw suddenly moved towards the small mountain village in front of him and grabbed hard. In the vast void, a huge invisible electric claw, like thunder and lightning, has arrived in front of the small mountain village. That is at this moment. In front of the small mountain village. Wang Xiao raised his slingshot. Then, unzipped the rubber band. Emission. Call out. A stone shot out quickly. Wang Xiao just plays slingshot normally. But at this moment, the Thunder Emperor, who was already approaching the small mountain village, suddenly had his hair explode. What? The Thunder Emperor was shocked. At this moment, he clearly felt a kind of fear originating from his soul. He seemed to have turned into a chicken and duck ready to be slaughtered, facing the terrifying butcher knife, frightened and trembling all over. He opened his eyes wide and saw the young man who looked like a farm boy at the entrance of the village shooting a stone from his slingshot. But, what was that stone? The Thunder Emperor clearly felt it. That stone was more terrifying than the mountains, like a grain of divine gold condensed out of billions of stars in the universe. The stone carried the vast power of the universe, as if a universe had fallen, shooting at a speed that surpassed everything else. He could clearly see that wherever the stone passed, every inch of space had been reconstructed tens of millions of times in an instant. The weapon of the Emperor of Heaven. No. When did this world have such an artifact of the Emperor of Heaven? The Thunder Emperor spoke in horror. This kind of aura has completely surpassed ordinary imperial weapons. I am afraid, only the legendary weapons of the Emperor of Heaven. However, throughout the history of the Forbidden World, there has been only one Emperor Xuanhuan, and when did have he ever refined a slingshot? Unheard of. Thunder Emperor's heart was racing with thoughts, and he flapped his wings to escape, but the speed of the stone was faster than the speed of his wings. Bang! The sound of pebbles hitting thick feathers. Ah! The Thunder Emperor let out a shrill scream. At this moment, he clearly felt that this stone seemed to contain the most extreme original power in the world, causing all of his Thunder Emperor origin to be scattered. He even clearly felt that the impact of the stone actually penetrated his Taoist scenery, shattering his path of rules. The land of nothingness connected by his path of rules, after the creation of the path, had become a vibrant thunder earth, and now it has collapsed, and the 3 souls and 7 souls entrusted in it are wailing and unable to escape. I don't want to die. The Thunder Emperor shouted. He was shaking to the extreme. This heavenly emperor's weapon actually wanted to kill his soul. At the last moment of consciousness, he seemed to have thought of something, suddenly turned his head, looked back, and shouted. Ao Wushuan, run away. If he dies, then Daozi Ao Wushuan is his only chance to be reborn. However, he did not see Ao Wushuan. He was immediately startled. Maid, has Ao Wushuan run away? This guy, was he sure that he would die, so he ran so fast? At this moment, he suddenly heard that when he was rushing towards the small mountain village, Ao Wushuan once warned him that this small mountain village was very evil. However, these thoughts flashed past, and his huge bird body was like a kite with broken strings, losing its ability to fly and falling from the sky. At this moment, the terrifying invisible thunder sea that filled the sky suddenly dissipated, and the 10,000 Emperor machines also disappeared with it. Silence returned between heaven and earth, except for a big bird that struggled unwillingly and landed on the ground. The entrance to the small mountain village. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded, and there was silence at the entrance of the village. Shui Qingling's delicate body was trembling, and her face was filled with an incredible expression, as if she had seen something terrible. No. Is this true? Thunder Emperor was shot down. A slingshot. She subconsciously looked at Wang Erxiao at the entrance of the village. This is just a child. How can he shoot a being at the level of the Thunder Emperor? Could it be that every child in this village is stronger than the Emperor? Sky. What kind of village is this? She was shocked, completely shocked. Her scalp felt hairy, and her whole body was trembling. What kind of existence did he come into contact with? Didn't the strongest among the ancestors die and live in seclusion here? Not only her, but also Fan Peiming and Fan Yao Yao opened their eyes wide. A slingshot. Defeated the Thunder Emperor? Is this still the Thunder Emperor? Fan Peiming murmured that if word got out, the world would never believe that a boy from a mountain village defeated the Supreme Emperor, who had been famous in the taboo world for hundreds of thousands of years, with a slingshot. But it all, really happened before their eyes. Fan Yao Yao was also stunned for a moment, and then she jumped for joy, eyes extremely excited, and looked at Tugu Yuking and said, Ancestor, let's go pick up birds. Burning, barbecue. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. Tugu Yuking was also deep in thought, and Wang Erxiao's performance exceeded his expectations. But after thinking about it, he was relieved. These villagers, had lived with the master longer than them. Moreover, this small mountain village seemed to have existed before the master arrived. Who knows who the people in the village are? Hearing Fan Yao Yao's words at this moment, he couldn't help but look complicated. Among his descendants, Fan Yao Yao was a foodie. Let's go and have a look. He spoke. The second uncle also nodded with satisfaction and said, Second Xiao, you did a good job. Go and pick up that big bird. Let's have a feast tonight. At the same time, in Kaiwan continent, the billions of thunderclouds that filled the endless sky suddenly collapsed at this moment, and the entire continent seemed to have fallen into a great terror. What happened? It seems like something collapsed between heaven and earth. It's the Tianxin seal. When the Thunder Emperor attained enlightenment, the Kaiwan continent Tianxin seal was already under his control. Now, the authority has collapsed. What's going on? What happened? The Thunder Emperor's authority actually collapsed and dissipated, and he is returning to the world. Could it be that the Thunder Emperor is going to die? A huge earthquake across the continent. This is a huge event. When every great emperor attains enlightenment, he will control the authority of a certain continent and place and become one with the Tianxin seal. Since ancient times, unless the emperor dies, the authority will not be shaken, and the Tianxin seal will not return to heaven and earth. But now, all the creatures in Kaiwan continent feel that the centralized authority between heaven and earth has been dispersed, and there is an unprecedented sense of emptiness and clarity between heaven and earth. Emperor. What happened to the great emperor? Was he killed by other ancient emperors? Pause, the garrison is waiting. The 36 troops of Lighting, who had already gathered towards Yuzhu to wait, were now in a state of panic. Continents. Looking at the many supreme beings in Kaiwan continent, everyone was suddenly shocked at this moment. Kaiwan Zhou, Thunder Emperor's authority has collapsed. In the sky above Yuzhu, amid the mist, a whisper sounded. Even if the Thunder Emperor is not dead, he is still seriously disabled. Has darkness fallen? In Wanmu continent, between the black and yellow Qi, a sneer sounded. I'm looking forward to it, whether the Thunder Emperor can be reborn in the darkness. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1114. This evil little mountain village, we will never see each other again. At this moment, there are terrifying beasts in the forest. A middle-aged man is running away like crazy. The sight of his escape was very terrifying. There was actually a black hurricane beneath his feet. It was swaying across the border and was invincible wherever it went. This scene was exactly what he released from the Taoist landscape. Originally, it was dark and billowing in the Daijing area. He always felt that something was wrong, so he was reluctant to show it to others. But now, he was really scared, so he couldn't care so much. Moreover, not long after he ran out, he felt the thunderclouds dissipate in the sky and the Emperor's energy disappearing. This made him even more determined. Damn, this small mountain village must not be messed with. It's so evil, even the supreme being in this world, the great Emperor, if he doesn't believe in the evil in the small mountain village, he will die. The Thunder Emperor is probably cold. However, just as he was running wildly, suddenly, in the space ahead, two black smoke flashed past. What the hell is this, Nima? Xuanhuan looked and saw two men suddenly appearing in the black smoke. The two men were covered in black cloaks, with only two rotten eyes exposed, staring at Xuanhuan. Dark. Xuanhuan suddenly felt nervous. It was over. Why did we get out of the tiger's den and meet a hungry wolf again? He has experienced it before, and it is related to black energy. It is also very evil. Last time, even the black smoke tried to turn him into a rotten slave. Now, people actually come to the door. He looked at these two dark-colored and evil slaves, was silent for a moment, became cruel, and decided to risk everything. Then, he started to take off his clothes and pants. Seeing his strange behavior, the two rot slaves were all gorged on his semen and said hurriedly, "What you do?" Xuanhuan raised his eyes and said blankly, "Aren't you going to wrap me in a shroud? I'll put my clothes away so they don't get dirty." The last time he met these people, they wanted to turn him into a rot slave, so he subconsciously thought that these people were trying to catch him back as a rot slave. Hearing this, the two rot slaves couldn't help but look at each other, with some doubts in their eyes. This Xuanhuan is weird. So skilled, could it be that he has been refined into a rot slave by other black smoke before? But how could he still have his own consciousness after being turned into a rot slave? It's so strange. However, the two rot slaves did not think much, but said solemnly, "Not a shroud for you. There is a lamp, you don't deserve it." Hearing this, Xuanhuan's heart suddenly thumped. Do these two guys know about the black light? He suddenly felt nervous. "Come back with us and give the lamp to the people over there. Their words cannot be refuted." When Xuanhuan heard this, he was a little scared. Why should he go back? Moreover, from what I heard, do these rotten slaves recognize the people from the small mountain village? It's over, so we're in the same group. This time, I was completely surrounded by the small mountain village. He panicked. In front of the small mountain village, the group of people followed him out, wanting to see what happened to the Thunder Emperor. Wang Erxiao ran the fastest. He rushed in front and in a blink of an eye he was already in the forest ahead. He saw the big thunderbird struggling in the forest. The thunderbird was as big as an ostrich. It was not killed, but its feathers were stained red with blood, and it was obviously seriously injured. Gah, gah. At this moment, Thunderbird, 3 souls and 7 souls have been killed by Wang Erxiao's slingshot. It can be said that it has lost its consciousness. Therefore, it can only quack like an ordinary big bird, and the sound is quite miserable. It's not dead, second uncle. This bird is still alive and can eat fresh food. Wang Xiao spoke excitedly. He held the thunderbird's wings hard and resisted, saying, "Look, it's such a big one." Dugu Yuking, Fan Yao Yao and others also followed. Thunder Emperor was actually beaten like this. Is this the death of his soul? Shui Qingling murmured in horror. This is a generation of great emperors. In the entire forbidden world, there are only a few great emperors who are still alive. And the Thunder Emperor is the youngest and most powerful one, and the last to attain enlightenment. Among the many great emperors, it can be said that there is still a lot of good things. Future. But now, someone has made a prototype, and even the soul cannot be saved, and even, according to the people in this village, it will be eaten. She felt, almost fainted from fright. Fan Peiming couldn't help but look complicated. Ancestor, the people in his village are so terrible. He suddenly felt that the small mountain village actually didn't need to do anything. As long as a few children were sent out to play, I guess, the entire taboo world could be destroyed, right? I guess even the emperor would have to hide. Wow, this bird looks so fat. Much better than that old bird. Certainly delicious. Fan Yao Yao praised it. Even the second uncle nodded and said, "Not bad, not bad. This bird can be regarded as a good ingredient. It can make a good soup." When Dugu Yuking heard this, he couldn't help but be surprised. The second uncle actually praised the ingredients one day. He remembered that the villagers actually looked down upon the various prey they had hunted back, and even the true ancestor-level ingredients from the Sea of Grey Fog. They just wanted to eat them freshly. Today, This emperor-level bird finally received the comment of barely considered a good ingredient. It's unprecedented. The Thunder Emperor can reach such a level, so he deserves to be the great emperor. Let's go back to the village to have a feast. There are so many big birds, so we can have a good feast today. The second uncle spoke immediately. Let's go back to the village and have a feast. Eat bird meat. Roasted whole bird. A group of children spoke excitedly. Immediately, they returned to the village. Shui Qingling's heart was full of complexities and extremely uneasy. She had no idea how she would be treated, but now, she could only follow Zhuge Yuking and wait for her fate. They had just entered the small mountain village, but the second uncle suddenly remembered something, slapped his head and said, "Yeah, I'm so confused, I almost forgot." He turned to Zhuge Yuking and others and said, "Yuking, you go back first, I have something else to do." The dance master said that when there is thunder for the first time this year, someone will bring something back to me, I have to wait. Hearing this, Zhuge Yuking's heart skipped a beat. He now knows that those who dance the great dance come from the village. The master dancer left the village first, and the master came back later. Moreover, when Master Tiao was around, he seemed to have a very high status and led the people in the village to fight against many evil things. Now that he entered the Forbidden World, he discovered that the fog shrouding the entire Forbidden World was inseparable from the one known as the Great God of Dance. He seems to be laying out the darkness. Could it be that today's small mountain villages are finally entering the game? But he remained silent, just nodded and said, "Okay, let's go first." Immediately, he led a group of people and walked towards the village. Wang Erxiao and others ran to each house to inform everyone that the banquet was about to begin. This thunderous sky goes as quickly as it comes. The great dancer has been out for so many years and hasn't come back. Hey, I'm afraid he died outside. The second uncle lay back on his taishi chair. The cool breeze was blowing. He couldn't help but cover himself with a small blanket and closed his eyes to rest, as if he was remembering something. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1115. Let's get started. Let's get started. In the small mountain village, the voices of children resounded. Every household was moving, supporting the old and the young, men, women and children, holding pots, bowls, pans, etc., and gathered in the open space commonly used for banquets in the village. Zhuge Yuking placed many thunderbirds in the open space, handed them over to Uncle Zhang and Aunt Wang, and then headed towards the small courtyard. Now, in the small courtyard, Li Fan was bored and taking Gongya to do farm work. He drew a lot of well water and watered the plants in the courtyard. It is now the spring season in March, and the courtyard is full of fresh green. The world tree has sprouted new buds, and each leaf seems to bear the imprint of the world. There is a mysterious energy flowing, and it seems to be nurturing the prototype of the world. During both the underworld and the yang world, the world tree absorbed a lot of world imprints and left them in the tree. Those world imprints did not disappear, but seemed to be stored in it. Nanfan's sacred blood grass was brought to the entrance of the village by the wolf when he was in the underworld. Now it grows very lushly, with a total of 7 leaves and an excellent color. The original divine grapes have sprouted, and the branches are already as tall as a person. Li Fan thinks that they will be able to bear fruit this year. He still clearly remembers that Xiling's grapes are big and plump, so he pays extra attention when cultivating the soil. Long Xuanhuan's lotus flowers are still growing in the pond, and the little black fish has grown to 4 or 5 pounds. Li Fan tries not to look at it, lest he always think of grilled fish or something. He took Lu Rang's pot of grass with him. The vegetable field he was once responsible for was now being hoed by Gong Yat. She was dripping with sweat, her jade arms were like snow, and the trembling gave people a sense of endless reverie. Duguyuking's everlasting tree is covered with pale young leaves, with invisible pale fire burning, and its trunk is like a human skeleton. The pure Bodhi tree is more than 1 meter long. The leaves of the Bodhi tree stretch out randomly. It does not show a profound Zen feeling. Instead, it seems that because it grows in a small courtyard, it has a natural and self-made freehand brushwork. Zhongli's 9-turn treasure bamboo has become more jointed and looks very tall and straight. The bamboo leaves sometimes fall down and are extremely elegant. He brought Wu Dade's molten gold ancestral tree, otherwise it would be difficult for Li Fan to feed him. After all, that thing needs to eat pot ashes. Lin Zhuzhan's unicorn fruit tree is the most impressive. It has white flowers. The flowers are like small unicorns, adding a fragrant fragrance to the courtyard. Subakian planted 2-leaf grass. It only had 2 leaves, but they were as crystal clear as jade. It seemed to have been growing and absorbing nutrients, but it had not grown much. One leaf was like emerald green, and the other was as black as ink jade. Li Fan was quite attentive. He could naturally see that one of the 2 leaves of grass contained countless medicinal properties, while the other contained hidden poisons, so he added some ingredients with his own hands. After Li Fan finished cooking the plants grown by his disciples, he fed the small animals food, meat from the wolf cub, fodder for the white horse and golden calf, fruits from the little monkey, and sprinkled bait for the fish in the pond. Zhongli's little turtle and Subakian's little fox were taken away. Meow meow, meow meow meow. Xiaobai ran over affectionately and rubbed Li Fan's leg. He then picked up the kitten and stroked it. "Master, we are back." At this time, Duguyuking's voice came from outside the door. Li Fan turned his head and saw that they had pushed the door open and entered. Stepping into the small courtyard, Fan Peiming and Fan Yaoyao were used to it and waited respectfully, while Shui Qingling was shocked. This kind of place. This kind of breath. It is clearly more terrifying than the holy land of cultivation at the core of the water path imperial court. Every wisp of air is like a supreme source. This place was scarier than other places in the small mountain village. She even vaguely felt that this was probably the foundation of the entire small mountain village, right? She subconsciously raised her eyes and looked into the small courtyard, but just when she raised her eyes, she saw a group of native chickens in the yard. One of the native chickens glanced at her indifferently. Suddenly, she felt a stinging pain in her eyes and hurriedly closed them. At the same time, she was even more horrified. This native chicken couldn't be looked at directly. She had a feeling that someone had deliberately restrained herself with that glance. Otherwise, she would have died if she had just been glanced at casually. No, how could this be a native chicken? It must be some kind of terrifying ancient rare bird. Could it be Phoenix? However, she instantly put an end to this idea. Phoenix, this species is too ancient and distant. Even in the era of raising fire, it was a legend. Didn't you find your senior brother long? At this time, Li Fan asked lightly. Duguyuking said. Master Qi, we didn't find senior brother long, but we found clues related to him. He immediately pointed at Shui Qingling and said. This girl Shui Qingling Shui should know where senior brother Long Zixuan is. Li Fan immediately looked at Shui Qingling. He felt that Shui Qingling seemed a little nervous, and immediately smiled and said. Don't be nervous, Miss Shui. We just want to ask you about someone. Li Fan spoke to Shui Qingling, and Shui Qingling suddenly felt that the suffocating feeling just now disappeared in an instant, and her whole body became very relaxed. She looked at Li Fan and saw that Li Fan could not sense his aura at all. He was just like a mortal, with only an elegant aura. Although he lived in a mountain village, he felt extremely detached. It seems that the status is the highest. At this moment, she suddenly became a little nervous. This place is so mysterious and terrifying, and the owner of this place is absolutely extraordinary, and is probably not weaker than the emperor. Senior, please tell me, if Shui Qingling knows, he will tell you everything. Li Fan said. I have an apprentice who left some time ago and has not come back. He smiled and said. He usually doesn't have any hobbies. Although he grows up to be powerful, he likes to raise fish and play with water. As he spoke, he pointed towards the pond next to him and said. Well, that's the fish he raised before. Hearing this, Shui Qingling looked towards the pond. In the pond, a group of fish jumped out of the water gently as if they heard Li Fan's words. Seeing this scene, Shui Qingling subconsciously softened and almost collapsed from fear. Because, she clearly saw, what kind of fish was there in that pond. When the fish jumped, what appeared, was clearly the shadow of Kunpeng, the spirit of a true dragon. Although the shadow of Kunpeng and the spirit of the true dragon were dormant, just one look at it frightened her and almost scared her to death. Kunpeng. True dragon. She was directly frightened. These two creatures were so ancient that they were no longer in the world long before myths and legends even touched upon the era of fire raising. But, now it appears and is still being raised in the pond. No. That ghost once said, that he once raised a real dragon and a Kunpeng. Could it be that he is actually the senior's disciple? She suddenly heard something that happened in the Waterway Emperor Court some time ago. In a top-secret forbidden area in the Waterway Imperial Court, a ghost actually appeared. The ghost was very scary. As soon as it appeared, it would catch and eat the crocodile dragons, sky turtles, and other rare animals raised in their Waterway Emperor's Court. The masters from the Water Path Imperial Court came to arrest him, but he said that he had raised real dragons and Kunpeng, and had killed hundreds of geniuses from the Water Path Imperial Court. Some powerful elders were even killed until no flesh was left. Now, after hearing what Li Fan said and seeing the pond with my own eyes, she immediately remembered the ghost. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1116. How about it, girl, do you have any clues about my apprentice? Li Fan asked Shui Qingling. When Shui Qingling heard this, her heart tightened and she didn't dare to lie at all, saying, Junior, should know. When Li Fan heard this, he couldn't help but nodded, that's good. Okay, then I have to ask the girl to lead the way. Shui Qingling hesitated for a moment. Does she still have to go back to the Waterway Imperial Court? Now the Waterway Imperial Court is, nothing short of sad for her. As a saint of the Waterway Imperial Court, she was betrayed and treated as an abandoned son. She was heartbroken. But she finally took a deep breath and said, Okay, I will try my best, Junior. If it weren't for Duguyuking and the others, she would have died long ago. She is not someone who refuses to repay a favor. Yes, Master. At this time, Duguyuking opened his mouth and said, We went out this time and hunted a lot of big birds. The villagers have already gathered and are preparing to have a banquet. Li Fan felt happy. It had been a long time since the banquet had been held. Okay, let's take a look. He immediately hugged Xiaobai, took Duguyuking, Gongya and others out of the small courtyard. Shui Qingling seemed to be following them silently. And at this moment, outside the small mountain village, do you really want to go back? In the forest, Ao Wushuan's face became increasingly ugly. He really didn't want to go to that evil little mountain village. Stop talking nonsense. If you don't go, you'll die. The two rot slaves spoke coldly. Ao Wushuan was extremely desperate. This was the first time he had been so desperate. After all, although he was afraid of the small mountain village in the past, those who forced him to go to the small mountain village were hostile to the small mountain village, so, leading the way also had a chance of survival. However, this time these two rot slaves are probably on the same side as the small mountain village. Isn't this a fool's errand? Finally, the three of them saw the small mountain village ahead. The evil little mountain village. Lao Ao, I still haven't been able to escape from your clutches. Ao Xuanhuan sighed and moved forward. However, as he walked, he suddenly smelled a rotten smell. He glanced left and right, only to see that the shrouds on the two rot slaves were gradually decaying, and the corpses on their bodies were flowing, and the pieces of flesh gradually fell to the ground, and then melted and disappeared. Hey, what's going on? Ao Xuanhuan was surprised. Could it be that the power of this small mountain village restrained these two rot slaves? Aren't these two guys with Xuanhuan village? The key is that these two corrupt slaves are staring directly at the small mountain village at the moment, seemingly unaware of their own changes. There is hope. Ao Xuanhuan's heartbeat quickened, and he followed quietly so as not to disturb the two slaves. He was ready to run away when these two rot slaves completely melted and disappeared. Step by step, we approached the small mountain village. Finally, we almost arrived at the entrance of the village. The closer he got to the village entrance, the more nervous he became, and the two rot slaves beside him were almost nothing but black skeletons. Why hasn't the light melted yet? Ao Xuanhuan gritted his teeth and took another step forward. Snapped. A clear voice sounded, and finally, the bones of the two rot slaves who held him hostage all the way were completely shattered. And in place, only two pure black mist were left. When the black mist was deep, Ao Xuanhuan even felt that it was purer than the dark energy he encountered when he entered this world before. Second only to those in his own scenic spot. However, Ao Xuanhuan didn't think much about it. Taking advantage of Fu Nu's death, he turned around and ran away. However, as soon as he turned around, an old voice came from behind him, saying, Boy, wait a minute. After hearing this, Ao Xuanhuan suddenly stiffened. It's over, it's been discovered. He suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Unexpectedly, he still fell short after giving birth. At this moment, his mind was spinning, and then he gritted his teeth, turned around and looked into the village. If he runs away, he will probably be killed by Xuanhuan village. Let's see first, if we can fool him. He raised his eyes and saw an old man on crutches standing at the entrance of the village, looking at Ao Xuanhuan with a smile. At this moment, the two black auras left behind after the two rot slaves disappeared suddenly floated towards the old man. When the second uncle saw the black energy coming, he waved his hand casually. Suddenly, the two black energy dissipated directly. Seeing this, Ao Xuanhuan was surprised. This old man is so vicious. He knows that black energy is definitely one of the most dangerous things in this world. However, this old man can destroy it easily and doesn't take it seriously at all. It is indeed a small mountain village that is even more evil than the Black Spirit. However, he suddenly became confused. Didn't those two rot slaves say that they were on the same side as the small mountain village? As a result, as soon as they approached the entrance of the village, they completely disappeared, leaving two black auras, which were extinguished by being slapped. This feeling, could it be that Guangming thought that the people in this village were on the same side as them, but in fact, the people in this village were not. The darkness feels more or less like a hot face against a cold butt. While he was thinking wildly, the second uncle was already looking at him with a smile and said, "Young man, did you bring me something? Send things." Ao Xuanhuan was confused for a moment, but then he remembered, the two rot slaves asked him to deliver the lamp in the Dao Jingdi. Could it be that, as expected, this old man just wanted that lamp? While he was feeling uneasy, he felt something in his sleeve. When he stretched out his hand, it turned out to be the lamp. This lamp actually came out on its own initiative. He was shocked. This thing was really evil. It was actually related to the small mountain village. He immediately put the lamp in his hands without hesitation and said, Yes, I, I'm here to give you this. The second uncle looked a little puzzled and said, "What a lamp." He casually took the bronze lamp and looked at it carefully. "I'm afraid this lamp is burning kerosene. The flame is so dark. Which, old man, can I go?" At this time, Xuanhuan looked at him anxiously. When the second uncle heard this, he raised his eyes and said, "Excuse me, young man, if you have nothing to do, go to the village and sit for a while, have a bite to eat before leaving." Xuanhuan hurriedly shook his head and said, "No, no, no. I still have things to do, a lot of things." The second uncle said, "That's it, that's okay, I won't keep you." He took out a piece of black money from his pocket, handed it to Xuanhuan, and said, "Uncle, I don't have much money. I have saved this copper coin for many years. I don't know if it can be used outside, I give it to you as a souvenir." Xuanhuan was afraid and said, "No, no need, I don't thank you enough for a favor, so you don't have to be so polite." However, as soon as he said it, he realized that he had said the wrong thing and said hurriedly, "No, no, no. It's a small matter, it's a small matter." When the second uncle heard this, he felt happy. This young man is not a bad person. However, he pulled his face and said, "What? It's too little. If I tell you to take it, just take it," he said and handed over the money. When Xuanhuan saw that the second uncle was being embarrassed, he was immediately frightened. How could he dare to refuse? He immediately took it and said, "Thank you, old man. Then, I'll take my leave first." The second uncle nodded and said, "Go. Bon voyage." Hearing this, Xuanhuan turned around and ran away, so fast. The second uncle looked at his leaving figure and couldn't help but nodded and praised. "What a good boy." After saying that, he picked up the lamp in his hand again, looked at it carefully, and said in confusion, "The master said that you have to cut your blood and burn it with oil. Is this true? No matter, let's go back and have a party first." He immediately took the lamp and went to the open space in the village where the banquet was held. Good night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1117. Small Village. In the evening, people in the village have gathered, men and women, old and young, and it seems extremely lively in the March spring light. Uncle Zhang is already slaughtering the big bird, Aunt Wang and a group of peasant women from the village are plucking and cleaning the feathers. The fire is already burning. The children were watching, and Wang Erxiao was bragging about how powerful his slingshot was. At this time, Li Fan also came over with Zhuge Yuking, Gong Ya and others. So many birds, not bad. Li Fan was quite happy. With so many birds, it was definitely enough for a good meal. "Come on, whatever you want to eat, I'll make it for you." Li Fan stepped forward, casually put on his apron and prepared to stir fry. Seeing this, Fan Peiming and Fan Yao Yao were shocked. This boss actually wanted to cook by himself. This simply shocked their jaws. In their opinion, this big boss definitely surpassed the great emperor, and was even not weaker than the legendary Emperor of Heaven. A generation of emperor, cooking for others to eat? They can even choose. Just thinking about it makes me feel trembling. Really, can I really eat whatever I want? Fan Yao Yao mustered up her courage and spoke with some anxiety. Li Fan smiled and said, "Of course you can, but you can only eat birds today. You can choose how to eat them." Fan Yao Yao said, "Well, then I want to eat braised food." Zhuge Yuking said, "Master, I want to eat grilled food. Seeing this, Fan Peiming also hurriedly spoke, saying, I want to eat stewed rice. Li Fan nodded, looked at Shui Qingling, and said, Miss Shui, what about you? Hearing this, Shui Qingling could only bite the bullet and said, I also can. At this moment, her whole body was in deep fear. Because, the scene in front of me is so amazing. There are so many thunderbirds, all of them are ancestral species with extremely strong bloodline. If anyone is released, it can dominate one side. However, now they are all slaughtered. This bird is the fattest. Bring a basin and catch the bird's blood. You can make blood tofu. At this time, Uncle Zhang even called out, asking Aunt Wang to take the basin. Then, he picked up the bird's neck and slashed it suddenly. Puff! Blood spurted out instantly. Seeing this, Shui Qingling felt her head buzzing. That bird! It's the Thunder Emperor. The Thunder Emperor actually had his neck cut off like this and was slaughtered like an ordinary poultry? She trembled. The key point is, who are the villagers in this mountain village? None of them find it strange. It seems that they have long been accustomed to killing the emperor and eating meat. These people must all be the strongest among the ancestors. She couldn't help but murmur. At this moment, the status of the small mountain village in her heart was infinitely higher. But, why hasn't this small mountain village appeared in all these long years? The pure land of the ancestors has been robbed by many strong men in the world. In this life, this small mountain village appears to take revenge? Starting from the Thunder Emperor. She felt as if she had witnessed history. At this time, Li Fan had already walked over and started cooking. He cut the meat, added oil, and stirred the spoon, but there was an inexplicable feeling that he was not used to it, as if something was missing. He pondered for a moment and naturally thought of a beautiful figure. Even though he's stupid, even though he doesn't know how to cook, even though he's always a disservice. But, I have become accustomed to having her around. I don't know if that silly girl has taken good care of herself outside. It's been a bit cold these days. In addition, there is no group of disciples rushing to sign up to eat the food they cooked. Li Fan felt a little sad in his heart, but he immediately smiled and said to himself, I'm used to the excitement, but I can't adapt to Dugu. He shook his head and started cooking without thinking any more. Soon, the whole bird feast was almost done. The banquet is open. Eat, eat. The villagers, men, women, and children, all come to the table to eat. The table is filled with all kinds of bird delicacies. The big stewed bird exudes a delicate fragrance, the braised bird legs are charming in color, and the roasted whole bird is dripping with golden butter, very tempting. For a time, everyone in the village started to eat. This tastes much better. The one Yuking brought back is better. It smells so good. Although it is much worse than what we raise in the village, it is not bad. People in the village were full of praise. Li Fan, Dugu Yuking, Gong Ya, Fan Peiming, Fan Yao Yao, and Shui Qingling sat at the same table. Looking at the meat on the table, everyone was salivating. I didn't expect, Senior Li can actually cook. Fan Peiming's eyes were complicated. Who could have imagined that a powerful man who was more terrifying than the emperor could sit on a table full of food, and they could actually eat it? It smells so good. Fan Yao Yao couldn't bear it anymore. Shui Qingling was in a daze. She witnessed with her own eyes that the Thunder Emperor and his brothers and sisters turned into a dish. Let's eat. Li Fan spoke. Immediately, everyone started using their chopsticks. Wow, this is so delicious. Fan Yao Yao took a bite of the braised bird meat and immediately exclaimed. Fan Peiming also tore off a wing and gnawed on it. He was extremely pleasantly surprised. The wings were not only delicious, but also contained the extremely powerful source of thunder. Shui Qingling tremblingly picked up a piece of meat. Facing this piece of meat, she felt a sense of inferiority. Because, she doesn't know what the process is for eating emperor-level ingredients. Is there any ceremony required? Will holding a bowl in the left hand and chopsticks in the right make you look old-fashioned? After all, she was a cultivator in the high-class society. She had been in the imperial court, and she understood deeply that before eating some rare foods, there was a whole set of etiquette, including how cooked the food was, and what special tableware to use. But, even in the upper class, even in the lofty imperial court, no one has eaten the Thunder Emperor. At this moment, she felt poor, humble, and cramped. She quietly looked at Fan Yaoyao next to her, only to find that Fan Yaoyao actually started directly, holding the bird meat in both hands and chewing it, without caring about the image. Not only Fan Yaoyao, but also most of the people in the village are like this. This is how to eat, she suddenly realized it, and then she hurriedly put down her chopsticks, grabbed the meat with her hands, and started eating. Afraid of being looked down upon by others. Seeing her like this, Dugu Yuking was surprised. This, Shui Qingling looked gentle and quiet. She didn't expect that she would eat so rough. Li Fan was very indifferent and said with a smile. Eat more. Soon, the village banquet was finished. Everyone gathered around the bonfire. Although it was already March, it had been a bit cold recently. The fire created a warm atmosphere, and the villagers laughed and talked together. Aunt Wang asked Uncle Zhang to help her family farm the land. Aunt Zhou said there was still a shortage of seeds, so Aunt Wu invited everyone to work together. By now, Fan Peiming and Fan Yaoyao have completely adapted to the rhythm of the village. They have already seen that it is not just Senior Li who loves to act, but the whole village loves to act. Even Shui Qingling was in constant shock, a little numb, and began to accept the reality. Each of these villagers obviously has the strength to kill the emperor, but no one mentions such words as wanting to dominate the world and be invincible forever. Instead, they were particularly focused on growing crops and raising chickens and ducks. Xiao Li, bring out your good wine quickly and have a few drinks with the second uncle. When the second uncle spoke, Li Fan also smiled and immediately asked Dugu Yuking to get the wine. Not long after, Dugu Yuking came back. He brought 2 large jars of good wine and poured them for everyone. Drinking and drinking, you come and I go. The second uncle drank a large glass in one sip and said, good wine, good wine. Some more, I have to get drunk tonight. Li Fan was confused. Although the second uncle had a good drinking capacity, he rarely wanted to get drunk like this. Second uncle, what's wrong? Why do you want to get drunk? He couldn't help but ask. The second uncle said, I can't do it without being drunk. I'm old and I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid of pain. I'll have to cut my wrists and bleed. When he heard this, Li Fan was shocked. Cut his wrist and let blood. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1118. A dark place of nowhere. In the darkness, the black secret eye was quietly blooming again, seeming to be receiving some information. It's been a sneaky day. If I have any news, I'd better share it with you. The being on the dark throne spoke lazily. However, the black secret eye quickly disappeared, and in the darkness, the voice of the black spirit came, saying, no news. You can just sleep peacefully. Then, the black spirit disappeared from this darkness. The being on the dark throne smiled helplessly and said, sleep. I clearly wanted to test my body before, but now I'm afraid. Haha, did you learn some incredible truth from the person behind you? The being on the dark throne murmured to himself. While I'm in the middle of the game, I can't remember many things, and I can't know the whole situation. It's really painful, and you're right. If you have a good sleep, there's no need to worry about so much, just wait. The black spirit turned into human form and appeared in front of a dark door. Master, the 2 rot slaves I sent, are already dead. The ancestral energy in them has disappeared. He Ling knelt down and spoke. On the dark door, secret power is flowing, and a voice has come. I feel it. Those 2 ancestral auras were left behind by my ancestors in the past. They will only truly appear when you meet my ancestors. Now that they have disappeared, they should have been absorbed by my ancestors. There seemed to be a hint of excitement in this voice, saying, my ancestor should also have obtained the lamp of darkness. My ancestor can use it to resurrect and activate the dark origin that was sealed by our ancestor. Go, find the next lamp of origin, and ignite the black fire. If things develop as we want, then those ancestors who were suppressed and sealed will reawaken. As long as they get the lamp of darkness, they can lay burning the Zhou formation, kill that body. During this period, you must not let the being on the dark throne test his body again. As long as he is still immortal, this is enough. Whether it's true or not. As long as he thinks he's still immortal, it means, he hasn't woken up yet. Hearing this, He Ling was extremely shocked. It feels that the overall situation of the future has slowly begun to move. Moreover, he had some vague understanding of this eternal situation. The one on the dark throne once suppressed a group of top powerhouses behind the door. He was brought here and suppressed with a seal. Those top experts are the ancestors we are looking for behind the door. And those ancestors are the hope of killing the last person on the dark throne. As long as the lamp of darkness is sent to the hands of these ancestors, they will awaken and restart the terrifying world-burning formation. He Ling understands. He Ling will do it now. He spoke immediately and then left. After the black spirit left, the dark door still hadn't disappeared, and there was a faint voice coming from it. Are you sure? Are those ancestors still the dark ancestors we are familiar with? This voice belonged to another being. Uncertain. The being who had just been talking to Black Spirit spoke up and said, back then, they were originally going to use the burning Zhou formation to suppress that person, but something happened and they were suppressed by that person. Then he jumped at the chance and took them away. The worst case scenario now is that their dark origins may have been obliterated. Another being whispered. No, this is not the most terrifying situation. What if their origin becomes the origin of the white mist, and now they get the lamp of origin? Do you know what will happen? The being who just talked to Black Spirit said. White mist is oil, and the black fire burning at this moment will change in the white mist and become the fire of white mist. Another being said in a deep voice. Back then, that person was willing to sacrifice himself just to ignite the fire of white mist, so that the world could have rules that could devour the darkness and become the land of life. If the white mist fire is rekindled now, what's the point of everything we did back then? Even if that person doesn't wake up, the white mist fire is still burning. Even, have you ever thought about it, this is probably the plan of Tiao De Shen. He saved that person, and then used the ancestors who have changed the origin to light the fire. I'm afraid this is his backup plan. Besides, don't forget that the cunning rabbit Sanku, who is a great master, hid his 3 souls and 7 souls before he went on the road. We have not found it yet. In these words, it seemed that he was full of fear towards the dancing master. The being who just talked to Black Spirit said. That's exactly what, we need to give it a try, isn't it? If this first lamp really changed from the fire of darkness to the fire of white mist, then it means that the origins of the ancestors have really been changed, and they are no longer the existence we imagined. That's really the case, then what we have to do, is to take away the other lights and destroy them at all costs. As long as the 12 lights don't light up the fire of white mist together, they can't threaten the darkness. But what if, the ancestors are still the dark ancestors? The only one who can suppress the ancestors is that one person. It is almost impossible for a master to make the origin of the dark ancestors easier. We can make a bet that the ancestors are still the ancestors of darkness, and they can still awaken after getting the fire of darkness. There was a hint of great expectation in this voice as he said. That man has reached the point where he cannot be killed. We don't even dare to touch the people around him. Even if we wipe out all life in the world and return everything to the original laws of the universe, he has jumped out of this river and will become a fish that slipped through the net. But if the ancestors awaken, there is still hope for the burning universe formation. He might die. Hearing this, another being was silent for a long time before whispering. Back then, something happened to the burning Joe formation, and many ancestors were suppressed and taken away by him. He snatched the source of darkness and used his white mist origin to jointly forge 12 lamps of origin. As long as they burn for one era, that world will be completely transformed into a pure land of life. Diao De Shen's action extinguished those lights, and he also reappeared. Dark Dome wanted to destroy that world in one go, and the ancestors who lit the fire would also die, but he took action. Fortunately, the people he cares about most are in our hands. We don't touch the people he cares about. He is self-proclaimed, not interested in world affairs, and does not light the fire of the white mist. This is a fragile balance. But his existence, after all, goes against the laws of the universe, and he should be punished. The burning universe formation is indeed the only hope to destroy him. It is indeed worth a try. Now, we just have to wait and see. If the lamp of origin is obtained by the ancestor, the fire of darkness continues to burn, and the origin of darkness of the ancestor is activated, then there is hope to set up the universe burning formation, use the power of the Dark Dome, and kill his last incarnation. If the fire of darkness is twisted into the fire of white mist, it is enough to show that the Master Jumper really did something. He turned our ancestors into white mist creatures, and he wanted to replace them with the white mist ancestors. That man should die and light the white mist fire. From the perspective of the urinary nature of the dancing master, I always feel that the latter possibility is more likely. After all, it is normal for that cheater to kill our ancestors in this way. The voice that had talked to He Ling before smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. Even if it is true, the great god of dance is only on the first floor, and we are on the second floor. It is very simple to defeat his plan." The dark door quietly disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1119. Small Village. Beside the bonfire, everyone drank the wine brewed by Li Fan, and the laughter was very lively. Li Fan, on the other hand, looked at the second uncle with a puzzled look. Want to get drunk so you can cut your own wrists to bleed? Second uncle, what's wrong? Why do you want to harm yourself? He asked. The second uncle heard this and said, "Didn't I tell you before?" Before Diao Dashan left, he told me that during the first thunderstorm this year, someone would bring me something back. Today, a young man actually brought me a lamp. The master told me to use blood as oil to burn the lamp and put it on the bedside. In this way, we can change the feng shui of our village. With that said, he took out the ancient bronze lamp he got from Ao Wu's hands. The mottled ancient bronze lamp was burning with a dark flame, but no one could feel any warmth. Seeing this lamp, Dugu Yuking next to him was immediately shocked and said, "Isn't this lamp thrown away by master?" He recognized it. This lamp was clearly the one he wanted to light in the Hank Mountains but was thrown away by his master. Now, it's actually in the hands of the second uncle, and it's been ignited. What's ignited is still a black flame. What's happening here? Even Li Fan was a little surprised. This lamp is indeed the same one from before. He was actually sent back to the second uncle. This is also fate. He began to think about it. What did the guy who danced the great god mean? Ask someone to find a lamp for the second uncle, and also ask the second uncle to use his own blood as oil to burn it? This sounds unreliable. He immediately thought that this lamp was unearthed from the ruins of the Hank Mountains. It could be said to be an antique, or it could be said to be similar to the bright weapon in the tomb. Large tombs in ancient times often paid great attention to feng shui, and the placement of a lamp or a bowl in the tomb was very particular. The things in the tomb are all feng shui objects in a sense. As for the master dancer, according to the second uncle and the others, he is just a magic stick, doing some weird things all day long, which is probably some kind of ancient witchcraft. Thinking of this, Li Fan couldn't help but shake his head and said, "Second uncle, the idea of using blood as oil to change feng shui is sheer nonsense and not worthy of belief. You must not harm yourself because of this." The second uncle said seriously, "Xiao Li, you can't talk nonsense. The great dancer has never lied to us. If it hadn't been for him, we would have been dragged away by something like the Grey Ghost. Since he asked us to do this, there must be a reason for it. I would rather believe it than not." His old eyes were full of determination. When Li Fan saw this, he felt a little helpless. This old man was too stiff-minded. Although the people in the village seemed to have a high opinion of the dancing master, Li Fan felt that that guy was just a liar. Maybe he just deceived the whole village back then, and this time he asked the second uncle to cut blood and feed it to the fire. What a scam. No, we must not let the master of dancing succeed. After all, the people in the village were simple and kind, and Li Fan couldn't bear to see them deceived and harmed. However, the second uncle and the others do not listen and are very superstitious in this regard. I'm afraid it's impossible to expect them to wake up. Even if they temporarily agree not to slit their wrists out of favor, Li Fan will probably do it quietly. This is more dangerous. After all, the wrist is an artery. If Li Fan knows, he can save him if something goes wrong. If he cuts it secretly, the people in the village will definitely die. The only way is to bring this lamp over here. Thinking of this, Li Fan immediately poured wine and said, "Okay, second uncle, if that's the case, I won't advise you anymore. Come, I'll drink with you until you're drunk." Hearing this, the second uncle said happily, "Okay, drink." Immediately, Li Fan and the second uncle, you had a bowl and I had a bowl, and they drank continuously. This surprised Zhuge Yuking and Gongya next to them. They have never seen Li Fan actively looking for someone to drink like this. "No matter, drink." Zhuge Yuking picked up the drink and started drinking by herself. Gongya was also drinking wine, her face gradually turning red, and her drunken eyes had a charming light. Next to them, Fan Peiming and Fan Yao Yao drank this kind of wine for the first time, and they were also very shocked at this moment. "This is the supreme divine fluid." Fan Peiming spoke excitedly and drank heavily. Fan Yao Yao only drank half a bowl, but she was already drunk and in a daze. The same was true for Shui Qingling next to her. The moment the drink entered her throat, her whole body trembled. Every cell seemed to be forcefully urged to bloom. Her body was washed and her potential was enhanced like never before. This kind of drink, I'm afraid even the emperor has never drank it. How could she not be excited about this sense of honor? Soon. At the scene, the villagers had gradually dispersed. The second uncle is also a little drunk now. He is mumbling drunkenly. Dark, so dark, black water is surging everywhere. The black stars are shining. Li Fan smiled at this moment. He finally put down the wine bowl and said, "Second uncle, I'll take you back first." With that said, he stood up, supported the second uncle, and walked towards the second uncle's house. "Xiao Li. I'm not drunk, drink more, second uncle is afraid of pain, I don't want to be stabbed." The second uncle spoke drunkenly and left with Li Fan. Not long after, they arrived at the second uncle's house. The second uncle went to bed and lay down, while Li Fan finally got the lamp. The black flame burned silently. Is this a kerosene lamp? Li Fan murmured, and then looked at the second uncle. He thought for a moment, suddenly found the scissors at the second uncle's house, and gently cut a shallow bloody cut on the second uncle's wrist. Then, he cleaned the second uncle's wound and wrapped it with gauze. In this way, when the second uncle gets up tomorrow, he can tell the second uncle that his wrists have been cut, the lamp has been burned, and the things arranged by the dancing master have been completed. Anyway, the second uncle is drunk and confused, so just lie to him like this. Otherwise, if he just takes away the lamp, the second uncle probably won't give up. This kind of old man is just stubborn. After doing all this, Li Fan felt a little relieved. This wave, well, the second uncle is on the first floor, the dancing master is on the second floor, and he is on the third floor. In order to protect the people in the village, I really worry about it. Then he took the lamp, left the second uncle's house, and walked towards the bonfire. Duguyuking, Gongya and the others were probably drunk again. Not long after Li Fan left. In the second uncle's house, in the bedroom, on the bed. The second uncle was already asleep. On his wrist, on the red-stained gauze, countless white mists suddenly appeared in the blood, rich and pure. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xian. Chapter 1120. When Li Fan returned to the bonfire, he saw that the bonfire was still there, but the people had begun to disperse. But this time, he found that Gongya was the only one left, drunk on the ground, and Duguyuking was missing. This surprised Li Fan. Duguyuking is a good drinker, doesn't he need someone to drag him along? Suddenly, he discovered that the drunk Fan Peiming was lying on the ground, scooping up mud with his hands, as if he was putting it in his mouth. Seeing this, Li Fan was immediately surprised. What the hell is this? Why are they all starting to vomit? Is the phenomenon of soil eating spreading from person to person? He hurriedly stepped forward, pulled Fan Peiming up and took a look, only to find that the corners of Fan Peiming's mouth were full of mud. It looks like, I ate a lot. Li Fan was speechless. He put Fan Peiming away, and then conducted an in-depth inspection of Fan Yaoyao and Shui Qingling. As expected, Fan Yaoyao and Shui Qingling also had some dirt in their mouths, but they didn't mind at all and swallowed hard with a smile on their expressions, as if they liked it very much. Li Fan felt that this was more or less mentally ill. Ming Tianbei. Li Fan couldn't help but speak and said. Take the three of them back to the mental hospital to stay for one night and observe them. He felt that these three people had a tendency to develop into mental illness. Ming Tianbei, Xue Ji, and others were still there. After hearing this, they ran over and took them away. Li Fan then picked up Gongya and walked towards the small courtyard. He felt that, Duguyuking had probably gone back to the small courtyard. On the other side, Ming Tianbei and the others were supporting Fan Peiming and others. Ming Tianbei said disdainfully. I don't know. There are often fires here, and the soil has become hard. The soil in the backyard of our mental hospital is delicious. As he spoke, he said to Xue Ji and the others. Come on, fellow demon commanders, let's go have a midnight snack. Li Fan returned to the small courtyard, pushed the door open, and sure enough, saw Duguyuking under the peach tree. Li Fan walked over, first put Gongya on a chair to rest, and then checked, and was suddenly confused. Because, under the peach tree, there are clearly traces of soil being dug. However, the corners of Duguyuking's mouth were very clean, with no traces of dirt. It's so strange. He felt something was wrong and immediately dragged Duguyuking back first. He dragged Duguyuking away, but at this moment, the branches of the peach tree were hanging lightly, and they lightly brushed from the ground. Suddenly, some of the soil disappeared. Gongya, who was sleeping next to her, opened her mouth subconsciously, and the soil turned into a ray of light and disappeared into her body. After Li Fan came out, he carried Gongya back to her room without thinking too much. After settling Duguyuking and Gongya, Li Fan turned around and went to the woodshed. In the woodshed, Li Fan found a dusty bottle containing a pile of black liquid. This is what Li Fan found in the village when he first entered the village. The villagers said that this was the divine oil refined by Dance Master. At that time, the villagers thought it was a good thing and wanted to drink it. Li Fan analyzed it and found that it was kerosene. Therefore, in order to prevent the villagers from drinking these things, he took away the kerosene and threw it in the woodshed to eat ashes. After getting this antique bronze lamp today, Li Fan thought of the kerosene. After all, the flame of this bronze lamp is rather dark, indicating that it should be burning kerosene. If other fuels are used, it may cause damage to the lamp body. In this case, this antique will be worthless in the future. Immediately, Li Fan brought the kerosene and the ancient lamp to the study. He placed the ancient lamp on the study table, and then calmly poured some of the kerosene into the lamp. Suddenly, the flame became more intense, and as the kerosene burned, there seemed to be a black breath constantly spurting out. Li Fan couldn't help but nodded. He guessed correctly. The lamp was indeed burning kerosene. Originally, this lamp should not have been lit. So many years have passed, and kerosene lamps have long been outdated and no longer suitable for today's times. However, now that the lamp has been lit, Li Fan has no choice but to take advantage of the situation. Just add some kerosene and burn it to remove the patina of this antique. If it is sold in the future, it will be in better condition. Then, Li Fan stood up and walked out of the study. After stretching, Li Fan went to bed. Not long after, Li Fan took a break. In the study room, the black flame changed unpredictably, and suddenly turned into a black lotus platform. On the lotus platform, a figure faintly appeared. The man was sitting cross-legged on the dark lotus platform. At this moment, the kerosene turned into dark trickles and merged into his body. This person's appearance is similar to that of Li Fan. Exactly the same. That is at this moment. In the study, the bow hanging on the wall was unpulled, but it quietly opened itself, and an arrow was aimed at the wick. On the bookshelf, a coverless ancient book slowly moved to the edge, as if it was about to fall towards the wick. But, at this moment, a rusty sword suddenly made a soft sound on the desk. Suddenly, the bow hanging on the wall quietly relaxed, and the arrow fell back into the quiver. The ancient book on the top of the bookshelf slowly returned to the bookshelf. At the same time, in the small courtyard, dragon shadows suddenly appeared, and the golden dragon roared silently, staring at the study, full of fighting spirit. The phoenix light filled the air, and each local chicken suddenly turned into a 9-day phoenix. Every feather seemed to be crushed by the eternity. Even the spiders were swinging among the webs, and the ants in the yard were arranged like a military formation, facing the study. The whole courtyard was extremely nervous. However, at this time, the peach tree brushed its branches and spoke softly, saying, "Don't be too nervous. The master is still here. It's just a black lamp. It can't change the world. Don't disturb the master's interest in sleeping." Hearing this, the tense atmosphere in the small courtyard relaxed slightly. However, the shadow of the phoenix did not completely restrain itself. The old hen's voice sounded solemnly and said, What's going on? Why does the master's dark body that was polluted under the dome of darkness appear here? Moreover, that dark body is still absorbing the source of darkness." There was a deep concern in the words. The peach tree whispered. In the past, the master faced the dark sky alone, narrowly escaped death, and killed his body polluted by darkness for 9 lifetimes before he found a way to refine 12 lamps of origin. After the master was rescued from the lamp of origin by the great god Jump, he once said that his 9 dark bodies were a serious problem and could only be suppressed by refining the legendary 9th world Forbidden Tower. In that battle back then, you and I both fell into deep sleep. We don't know what happened next, but now this body actually appears here, and it is also inhabiting the fire of darkness, housing the source of darkness. All of this is under the master's control. She spoke slowly, and finally, the phoenix shadows in the sky converged. As usual, the old hen was a little shaken at this moment and said, "You mean, this is a trap set by the master?" It murmured and said, "Looking at it today, the magic witch's backup plan is to replace, he refined the origins of many dark ancestors, and then asked them to cultivate the origins of white mist, just to let the villagers light the lamps instead of the master. But, the master took the lamp back, and also let his dark body contain the source of darkness, this. It seems puzzling. Before that, they didn't know what backup plan the witch had prepared. It wasn't until today that they suddenly understood, the dark ancestor. The dark origins of the people in the village have long been refined by the witches. After countless years, those dark ancestors have cultivated enough white mist origins. Therefore, the witch wants the villagers to light the lamps and die on behalf of the master. I have to say, the one who dances the great god is indeed ruthless. This is his backhand, his game." Doshu opened his mouth and said. The sorcerer underestimated the dark dome. There was a clarity in her words that seemed to have understood something, and she said, "His backup plan seems to be effective, but in fact there are too many loopholes. If the darkness comes out, it can completely make everything for him empty." The old hen seemed to understand, and subconsciously looked at Li Fan's bedroom and said, "So, need, a game within a game. In this way, the witch is on the first floor, the dark dome is on the second floor, and the master." The branches of the peach tree drooped lightly and he said, "I still remember that the day my master came to the village, the first thing he did was to collect the dark origins that the witches had cultivated from the bodies of many dark ancestors and throw them into the woodshed. Since that day, he has been planning and waiting for today. The bottle of kerosene in the woodshed is the source of darkness refined by the witch." The old hen nodded and said, "All of this should have been prepared by the master after we fell asleep. Back then, the fire of the white mist was extinguished, and the master walked out of it. He originally went to the sea of grey mist and the true ancestor realm to create reincarnation, but when darkness struck, he had to turn around and fight. In that battle, the phoenix true dragon and others were all silent. Therefore, it is difficult for them to know everything." Thinking of this, suddenly, the branches of the peach tree, the eyes of the old hen, the real dragon in the pond. They are all gathering in a certain direction. In that direction, the big black dog was lying in the kennel, pretending to be asleep and shivering. Ahem, I feel like many people are a little confused. Let's sort out the timeline. Li Fan alone resisted the dark sky, killed 9 blackened bodies, and refined 12 lamps of origin. The ancestors walked out holding the lamp of origin, created a forbidden world, and ignited the fire of white mist. Darkness struck, and the ancestors of the people died in the darkness. The great god, divine witch, tricked the ancestor tribes into extinguishing the fire of white mist and disappeared. That man returned and went to the true ancestor realm to create reincarnation. Darkness strikes again, and the Zhantian emperor waits for death. That man fights against him. On the way, he is taught the way of black and white reincarnation, making him the master of reincarnation. The phoenix, the real dragon, the peach tree, etc. were silent, but only the big black dog survived to the end. Li Fan entered the small mountain village. The timeline is as above to avoid confusing many people. The overall story is gradually unfolding, and I will try to finish it within 2022. I hope everything goes well. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1121. Late at night. Now. From the area where Xuanhuan village is located, a shadow suddenly projects out, and at a speed that surpasses everything, it quickly projects across the entire Xuanhuan continent. 3,000 states in an instant. At this moment, Sankinzo, shrouded in this shadow, instantly fell into a state of secrecy and could no longer be explored. The endless creatures remained intact, completely unaware of any changes in the world. However, at this moment, the gazes cast from other continents in the forbidden world all turned pale in shock. Yuzhu, deep in the sky, is filled with water waves. The Thunder Emperor's authority has dimmed and completely disappeared. He is dead. In the clear and hazy voice, there was a trace of excitement and expectation that could not be concealed, and she said, "The entire Xuanhuan continent has been shrouded in the shadow of darkness, making it impossible for me to explore anymore. This means, darkness has descended on Xuanhuan continent." Sure enough, the Thunder Emperor was destroyed by darkness. Next, it depends on whether he can be reborn in the seeds of darkness. Wanmazhu. The black and yellow chi gathered and changed, and a voice whispered, "The Thunder Emperor is destroyed. I hope he can survive, only then will our path be clear." Genyu Enjo. The golden eyes were filled with solemnity. Before the darkness, the Thunder Emperor died silently. Sure enough, in the face of darkness, the enemy is just like an ant, surviving is the greatest luxury. The path of parasitism, haha, I have to go if I don't want to go. A dark place of nowhere. In the thick darkness, a black secret eye was fighting and closing, as if waiting for something anxiously. But above the dark throne, the sound of sleeping breathing could be heard, which seemed leisurely and relaxed, in sharp contrast to the irritability of the secret eye. Finally, the black secret eye seemed to notice something. A dark shadow fell over that area. The voice in the darkness surprised me, and then the being in the darkness left. And on the dark throne, a whisper sounded, murmuring, "The shadow is shrouding the burning universe formation. A mortal person needs to be treated like this. It's a bit interesting. Where the darkness is extremely dense, there is a dark door." Black Spirit appeared, knelt in front of the door, and spoke excitedly. Reporting to the master, the shadow originating from the dark fire has enveloped an area of that world. The secret power flows on the dark door, and a voice comes out. "I have seen it. This is enough to prove that my ancestor has already obtained the lamp. Go, find other lamps of origin, ignite the fire of darkness, and then deliver them to other ancestors of darkness one by one." The dark ancestor who was suppressed back then was not just one, but a group of them. Only if they get the lamp of origin together and absorb the source of darkness in it can they revive the universe burning array. Hearing this, He Ling nodded and said, "Subordinate, do it now." He left. And the voice in the dark door was still whispering, saying, "The ancestors are still here, they got the fire of darkness and activated their own origin. However, we can't contact them yet. But it doesn't matter, this is enough to prove that there is still hope for the burning universe formation." There was a hint of excitement in these words. The burning universe formation was the basis for killing that person. Another voice also sounded, saying, "It is indeed worth a try. When the burning universe formation is successful, this world will be exterminated, and at the same time, kill that person. Let everything return to the original laws of the universe. By the way, it's time for us to prepare firewood. The fire of darkness has ignited, but it still needs fuel. When the time comes, it will have to be delivered to the ancestors." Small village. The next day, as soon as Li Fan got up and finished washing, the second uncle came to the door. "Xiao Li, What happened yesterday? The second uncle was a little confused and said doubtfully. Where did the light go? What's going on with this on my hand? He couldn't remember it at all. However, he was very concerned about what Master Tiao asked him to do, so he hurried over to ask. When Li Fan heard this, a group of people who were calm in their hearts showed surprise on their faces and said, Second uncle, have you forgotten? Last night, after we drank wine, you insisted on cutting your blood to light the lamp. Then we went to your house, cut your wrists, and drained the blood into the lamp. Moreover, just after you finished cutting the blood, the light disappeared inexplicably. I was quite surprised at the time. Hearing this, the second uncle had an expression of self-doubt. Are there these things? His old face was very confused. However, looking at Li Fan, and then looking at his wrist, he felt that it should be true. I'm so old and confused, I can't even remember such an important thing. He patted his head, but then he suddenly thought of something and said, It's broken. The light disappeared. Doesn't this mean that the great dancer is dead? His face became very ugly, as if he was extremely regretful and sad. Now it was Li Fan's turn to be confused. He couldn't help but tentatively said, Second uncle, what does this have to do with the great dancer? Why did he die when the light disappeared? The second uncle looked full of regret and said, After the great dancer left that year, Lao Zhang and I discussed the words he left behind. Although the two of us don't know much, we are not confused yet. We naturally understand. If we follow the instructions of Master Tiao, if we cut blood and burn lamps, we will most likely die. Hearing this, Li Fan was even more surprised. The second uncle, do they know? Since the second uncle and the others knew that the master trick was to trick them, why were they still so insistent on cutting blood and burning lamps? Then why do you insist on cutting your own wrists? Li Fan asked. Hearing this, the second uncle sighed with emotion and said, Diao Dashan has worked hard all his life and has never sought personal gain. He has always been thinking about the village. He must have done this out of necessity. As for death, I am already so old. What have I not seen? I am still afraid. What death? Moreover, before leaving the village, the great dancer always nervously muttered words like burning lanterns, extinguishing lanterns, rescuing people, and pure land, so, we guess, he let most of the time we do this to save others, maybe to save themselves, maybe to save others. Now, this kind of thing disappears after being ignited. As the saying goes, people die like lamps extinguishing, which means that most of the people who danced with great gods have died. His face is full of memories. Hearing this, Li Fan couldn't help but feel something in his heart. It turns out that the people in the village know everything. However, even though he knows everything, he is still willing to sacrifice himself. Although the people in the village are just ordinary people in the mountains, Li Fan feels that they also have a different kind of noble character. Even life and death can be taken lightly. At the same time, he was also glad that he had deceived Deng. After all, the second uncle and the others were not simply deceived. On the contrary, they knew the place of death but still did it. It can be said that they were determined to die. Second uncle, there's no need to be sad. Since that person is a master of dancing, he probably won't die that easily. Li Fan comforted him. The second uncle heard this and said, Hey, I'm afraid it's going to be a disaster. Forget it, just obey fate and do everything you need to do. Li Fan smiled and said, If it doesn't work, just treat him as dead and burn some paper money for him, that's all. He still knows the second uncle and the others very well. This kind of elderly people just want to feel comforted, so they have to do something. Hearing this, the second uncle nodded and said, You're right, I'm going to burn paper money right now. After saying that, he turned around and left. Yu Qing, Go and call Miss Shui Qingling and the others. After breakfast, you have to work hard again to find your senior brother Long. Li Fan opened his mouth and asked again. Pay attention. Last night, I saw that Fan Peiming, Fan Yao Yao and Shui Qingling were all a little abnormal. Shortly after, Zhuge Yuqing took the three of them back to the small courtyard. Meet Senior Li. All three of them saluted. Shui Qingling was particularly respectful, because she now knows the identities of Zhuge Yuqing and Li Fan from Fan Peiming and Fan Yao Yao. Zhuge Yuqing, the ancestor of our ancestors. What kind of news this is, if it spreads, the whole world will be shocked. And Li Fan, his status is even more unimaginable. The ancestor of the ancestors is just his apprentice. No need to be polite, let's have breakfast. Li Fan smiled and spoke. And looking at the unpretentious breakfast, Shui Qingling was shocked again. Phoenix eggs are actually for eating. She felt her poverty again. After breakfast, Li Fan said, Miss Shui, since you know the whereabouts of my apprentice, please lead the way. Upon hearing this, Shui Qingling nodded solemnly and said, Qingling obeys the order. In just one day, her thoughts have been completely changed. The memory of Suidaotidi disappeared the moment Suidaotidi regarded her as an abandoned child. Moreover, her nature is not bad, otherwise she would not have wanted to help Zhuge Yuqing and others leave when they were in the Lei Dao Emperor's court. And now, she already knows that Senior Li is prepared to deal with the darkness. This made her feel excited and determined to follow Li Fan. Master, can I take the fish raised by senior brother Long with me? At this time, Zhuge Yuqing spoke. When Li Fan heard this, he felt strange. He went out to find someone and took a fish with him to eat. Could it be that Zhuge Yuqing was afraid that he would eat the fish? Although it is true that the fish must grow quite big and fat, it can be cooked, and it will taste delicious when grilled and served with side dishes, but are you that kind of person? Take it away, take it away. It's better to be out of sight. Zhuge Yuqing was overjoyed when he heard this. He immediately found a big earthenware jar and walked to the pond. As soon as the earthenware jar was put into the water, the black fish eagerly got in. Master, this disciple will go first. Immediately, Zhuge Yuqing took the jar and said goodbye to Li Fan. The group of them immediately left the small mountain village. When I walked to the entrance of the village, I found the second uncle burning paper at the entrance of the village. The master dances, if you die, just get the money and spend it. While burning paper, he was still talking about it. No, what kind of paper is this? This yellow smoke. Shui Qingling spoke in shock. She discovered that after the second uncle burned the paper, the yellow smoke spread between the sky and the earth, seeming to attract something. Reincarnation. Zhuge Yuqing suddenly whispered. The yellow smoke rises and reincarnation comes out. The Thunder Emperor's authority has collapsed. The second uncle's yellow smoke will let the authority of reincarnation control this continent. Master asked the second uncle to burn paper. Is this a plan for reincarnation, the ninth forbidden tower, the fire of darkness? Zhuge Yuqing thought, these three things are regarded as the basis for suppressing all chaos. Now, the fire of darkness has entered the mountain village, is reincarnation slowly coming? Has the ninth forbidden tower appeared? He remembered that when the group of them left the mountain village, Master once told Miss Yungzi that he had found another solution. Now it seems that Master's overall situation is slowly beginning to unfold.